MBS here. In this video I'm going to take you through the whole process of static timing your engine and checking the static timing of the engine. I'm going to take it a few steps further. I've removed the distributor out of this engine and we're going to go right from scratch, fit the distributor, static time it and then check it. Alright, now you can take whatever little bits and pieces of this video that you feel are necessary for what you want to do. You may already have the distributor in your engine, so obviously the front part of this video may be no use to you, or you already know how to do it. But if you're unfamiliar with the process, please watch the entire thing and you'll see how it's all done right from scratch. Now before I go any further, I hope you've checked the video on finding exact top dead center, because if that mark on this pulley isn't accurate, then we're probably really wasting our time going any further in this video. So I've already done this in another video, so we know it's just a little off, and I'll compensate for that in this video. And now what we have to do is find compression number 1. Okay, so if we haven't gotten a compression number 1, we can still time the engine on the opposite cylinder, but how do we know which one it is? And that's what I'm going to run through with you right now. Okay, in my top dead center video, we found top dead center okay, but which one did we find? We found it for number 1 or number 6. Okay, so there's 2 of them. To time a distributor, we need to time it to number 1, so we need it on compression number 1, not just on top dead center. Okay, so remember there's 2 strokes it could be on. It could be on top dead center on its compression firing, or it could be on its finishing exhaust starting its intake. So we need it on compression firing number 1 so we can time the thing. Okay, so that's what we're going to find out right now. Now if you're on your own with no one to help you crank this engine over, the best way to do it is to remove your number 1 spark plug and just screw it in 1 thread. That's all you'll need. You just want it fitting in there loosely. So you've got both hands free to crank the engine over by hand, whatever method you're using, because you obviously can't have your finger in the hole, which is another method I'll show you, and turn the engine over at the same time. It's pretty hard. I can do it here because I've got the engine out, but you'll find that very difficult when the engine's in the car. Alright, so I've got this screwed in very lightly, and I'm going to bring the microphone down so we can hear any hissing coming out of that spark plug when I crank it. Alright, at the moment I've got the number 1 piston at bottom dead center, close enough. I don't know what stroke it's currently on, so I'm going to soon find out. If I hear hissing coming out of the spark plug hole, I definitely know I'm on compression coming up the top dead center. So let's have a listen. Yep, I'm coming up for compression. That was lucky. I only had a 50-50 chance of that. So now I know it's coming up from compression. All I need to do now is line up my timing mark to the timing point of what the specification says. So in this particular case it's 5 degrees before top dead center. So I'm going to line up my timing mark and put it on the 5 degree mark and leave it there. Now it's important that if you actually go past that mark, let's say I took it to 4 degrees or 3 degrees before top dead center, do not turn the engine backwards and put it back on 5. Alright? Turn it back to about 20 degrees before and then have another go at bringing it forward. Because in V8s that run a timing chain between the camshaft and the crankshaft, and you've got slap in that timing chain, all you're really doing by turning it backwards that few degrees is taking up the slack in the chain. What you'll find then is your timing will be out. Okay, it won't be accurate. So you've got to turn it in the direction of rotation and stop at the timing mark. Never wind it back and then try and fit your distributor and time it. Alright, now let's do the buddy method where you've got someone helping you. Now what they could do for you is jump in the car and just bump the starter over for you, just little bits at a time so the engine can turn over. And what you'll do is you'll stick your finger in the spark plug hole, and as he's bumping it over and the piston's just moving short bits at a time, when you come up to compression, your finger will get popped out of the hole, yeah? Alright, so here's a demonstration of what will happen. Okay, so that's, the compression has come up and popped my finger out. Alright, so we have found top dead center, compression number 1, and we've put it on the timing mark, ready to fit the distributor. Let's do that. Okay, now this is where it could get a little tricky for some people. Where do I point the rotor when I drop the distributor into the engine? Well, look, there's a myriad of ways to work this one out. Let me first say that I can put it in wherever I like. In this particular type of distributor where it's gear driven at the bottom, I can put this wherever I like. I can make number one cylinder, okay? But that's not the point. What I really want to do is put it back where it came from when the engine first was built, yeah? When it was first timed. All right, so we can get that information a few ways. Now, we could go to on the internet, find out where number one is supposed to be on the rotor, on the cap. You can find it in a manual as well. I've got plenty of manuals that tell me where number one is. And we've also, on this particular distributor, got a little mark in the body of the distributor. And that tells me that's number one. All right, so the rotor on this particular distributor will be right there. Okay? So I've got an easy one. Another way is to look at your cap. You may actually find that in some caps, number one will be marked right at the terminal that is number one, yeah? That doesn't happen always. That's usually on the four-cylinder Jap cars that are numbered. But in the six cylinders and V8s, you'll find that's very rare that they'll have a number on the cap. Alright, so I'm lucky here. I've got the mark. Alright, but if you haven't got any marks, you've got no telltale signs whatsoever. Maybe if you've already got the leads in your cap and the cap is already hanging off the engine and all the leads are still on the spark plugs, you've just saved yourself some trouble there. You just follow the number one back to the cap, fit the cap to the distributor, because they only go on one way, yeah? You can't fit these caps 180 degrees out. Click it into your distributor until it clicks in, and then see where number one is, lift the cap, point the rotor to that cylinder, and that's where you're going to fit it when you put it in the engine. Alright, so I know where my number one is now, so I can just drop this straight in, and then we'll show you a few different variations. Okay, here I go. We'll put the distributor in and we'll drop it in. Alright, as you can see there, here's where number one should be. I'm a fair bit out and there's no way I can move the distributor around to get the rotor to line up with that point. There's no way I'd be able to get my, well, not only does it not make it, I can't even get my vacuum hose onto the vacuum unit. So I've just got to pull it out and go back a few teeth and drop it back in. Now we've got it, and somewhere around about there it lines up, but I've still got it incorrect because I'm not going to be able to get my hose on in there. What I want is for this to be somewhere around about there when it's lined up with number one. So I'm one tooth out again, so I've got to pull it out a bit more, go back one and drop it in, and there you have it, somewhere around about there, plenty of room for my vacuum hose. I have got it on number one, and now we're ready to static time it from there. Alright, now as I said before, I can put this wherever I want. I can make number one over here, and as long as I can get the points to open up, as soon as they start opening, I've got plenty of room in my vacuum hose. I can put my number one spark plug lead there and then put the rest in firing order from there, and it'll work. But I may have trouble getting the leads on because in a lot of cars the leads are pretty nicely cut to length, and you may find they may not reach properly or they'll be too long if you do this sort of thing. Alright, so it's always best to put the rotor where it's supposed to be. Okay, so in this one, back down to there, and we're done. Alright, now we'll have a look inside and see what the points are doing so we can static time it. Alright, so now we need to set up the distributor so that the points are closed, and then we can rotate the distributor in the advanced direction to just open them. But if you're unfamiliar with advancing and retarding, then here's a quick way for you to work this one out. Alright, there's your rotor. Okay, if you want to know which way the distributor turns, simply turn your engine over and you'll see which way the rotor turns. That is the direction of rotation, yeah? Alright, in this engine it is clockwise, and I can double check that also by pushing on the rotor. If it's solid one way, then the distributor turns the other way, because what will happen, distributors have centrifugal advance, and there it is right there. So that is its direction of rotation. As it spins faster, this rotor actually moves forward due to advance springs and advances your timing for you, even though the rest of the distributor is held still. Alright, so that's the direction it rotates, clockwise. So to advance the distributor, we have to turn the body of the distributor in the opposite direction. So in this case, I would turn the distributor body anti-clockwise and that would advance the timing. Alright, so if you've got that concept now I'll have a look at the points and we'll see what's happening down there. Okay, if you look right down at the rubbing block of the points, that's the part that make contact with those 6 lobes. We want to get that basically in the centre here. Now before you go ahead and static time your engine, you obviously need to make sure that your dwell angle is correct. Okay, if you're unfamiliar with dwell angle, please look up the ignition section of my website and it explains what dwell angle actually is. So if we've got our dwell angle correct, and that is most of the time in direct relation to the points gap, but I wouldn't hold that true all the time. I have set up quite a few on points gap specification and found the dwell angle to be incorrect. So as a tuner, I'm a dwell man, and I'll always set distributors and points up on dwell, not points gap. The points gap is to get the points in there, but then I set them up by dwell. Alright, so we've got that in the centre of the cam there between the 2 lobes, and the rotor was pointing on number 1, yeah? So all we're doing now is rotating the distributor in direction of advance, and what we're looking for is that rubbing block to just start hitting that cam lobe, and it'll crack the points open. So we can do that visually here, and there we go. That would be statically timed. Now this method will only be good to within, look, 2 or 3 degrees, because you're visually checking and you're not looking for a spark. Okay, so that's the rough method, what I call the rough method. I could put the cap on now, put all the leads on, that engine will start, and I can get it into the shop and get a timing light on it. Alright, so that's one way you could get this roughly timed. Alright, if you want something a little better, we have to wind it back, and now we're going to turn the ignition on and look for a spark at the points. Now I'm going to turn this light off now so we can actually see that spark on camera, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, you can see the spark there. Sometimes it's a good throw of a spark, sometimes it's not so flash. Okay, that's what we're looking for. So what we do is we wind it back and we turn it slowly and slowly until we get that points to arc. And there we have it. There we will lock the distributor up. Now this method would be good to within probably about 1 degree. Alright, now we've looked at visually looking at the points ignition off and ignition on. Now we'll go and use a test light, and that's a slightly different method again, but same result, but a little bit more accurate, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, for this one I've wound the distributor back till the points are closed again, and we've fitted a test light to the negative side of the coil, and all we need to do now is turn the ignition on. That light should be off, and what will happen is as we rotate the distributor in direction of advance, that light will come on the minute the points crack open. Alright, this is a very accurate method of static timing, and then we'll check that later just to see how accurate it really is. So ignition on, and away we go. We'll just hit it. Now if you're hitting it just lightly and the distributor is moving fairly easily, just nip the distributor up a little bit tighter and then keep hitting. So you have to hit it with a little bit of force. There it is. That is timed. Now if I tighten it, that shouldn't move. Okay, now the distributor's tight. Timing is statically timed, and it's as easy as that. Now let's go ahead and check the accuracy of that. Okay, to simply check the timing, if you just wanted to do your static timing, wanted to see where it currently was, this is how you do it. Move your harmonic balancer before top dead center, probably about 10 degrees before the actual timing mark. And what we're looking for in this one is to line up the new black mark I put in on the pulley, because that's now true top dead center. I'm going to line it up with that long mark, and that gives me 5 degrees. Whatever your timing mark is on your engine, that's what you're aiming for, to put the timing marks together and make them line up when that light comes on the distributor. So just fit your test light onto your negative side of your coil and slowly rotate your engine over by hand, and all you're doing is looking at the light. Okay, so make sure your ignition is on, and just slowly crank your engine over in direction of rotation, little bit at a time. Now There we go, and it's thrown a beautiful spark across the coil as well. Now let's see where that's lined up and see how close that is. Okay, let's have a look how close that is. Alright, that is half a degree out. Okay, there's my top dead centre mark, there's my new top dead centre mark. It's actually just in between those two. And that's about almost spot on. So you can see that static timing is quite accurate. Of course, timing light is the best, but if you haven't got a timing light, this is the way you could check your static timing. Okay, that's our engine statically timed, and we've checked it. It's all good. So let's get our leads on so we can start it. Okay, first of all, put your cap on. Make sure it clicks into the recess correctly. So if it doesn't click in, you know it's not fitted properly. I know this one's 180 out, I believe. There we go, it's locked in. Do up your clips. And that's secure. We know where number 1 is, yeah? So let's get the number 1 lead on, and then let's go from there. Alright, I've got the plug back in. Let's get the lead on to number 1 point. Now these leads aren't the correct ones for this engine. This is the best I can do for the time being. Alright, 1. Now you need to know your firing order, otherwise you've got no hope of getting this right. Alright, we know the direction of rotation of the distributor, we worked all that out, we're all familiar with that now. So we know that the next one in the rotation of the distributor is that one. So that's going to be 5 in the firing order. Now if you don't know the firing order of your engine, have a look at your intake manifold. It's generally always written on the intake manifold. Alright, number 5 would be next, so you sort of want a lead that can reach over there. And there we have it. Next one's going to be 3, and that'll be a short lead. So we'll put 3 on. 1, 5, 3, 6. Okay, it should be another longish lead. Once again, we put this really odd leads on that I've got. Number 2 is going to be the next medium length lead. And of course, number 4 being the last cylinder. 1, 5, 3, 6, 2, 4. And there you have it. Only thing left is the coil lead. So away we go. Coil lead on. Now when you're putting all your leads on, make sure they are fitted correctly into the distributor cap. Yeah. And what you really should be doing for the spark plug boots is putting a little bit of dielectric grease in there. Because that'll just help the boots not stick to the spark plug when you go to remove them. And when you remove leads, never pull them by the lead itself up here. Always grab them by the boot terminal, somewhere about down there. Because if you just grab them here, you'll pull them off and wreck them. But with the dielectric grease in there, the boots won't fuse to the spark plug ceramic part of it, and it'll be much easier to pull your boots off without destroying them. Alright, if this was in a car, I'd be able to turn the key and this would run. No doubt about it, and it would run within that half a degree on the timing. So if I had a timing light, I'd just throw a timing light on number 1 spark plug lead and just check it. And if I have to do any minor adjustments, then I just move the distributor, either retard or advance it, depending which way it has to go. And that's your timing done. Okay, well that's it for static timing. I hope I've given it to you in enough detail and haven't missed anything out for you that you wanted to know. But if I have, you know, you're quite welcome to drop me an email and ask a question. I'll certainly get back to you with an answer. Okay, when we're static timing a V8 engine, obviously you're going to need to know which is number 1 cylinder. Alright, so you've got your left bank and your right bank, so which is number 1? Easy enough to tell. The tappet cover that is furthest forwards of the engine, number 1 is on that side. Yeah, okay, so that's easy enough. Now, as I said, you can get your firing order from your intake manifold. In probably 90% of cases, the firing order will be written on your intake. Now, if you don't know it, oh look, Google it. There's plenty of places around that you can Google it. Now, I've got it on my website too for the most popular engines, Holden's, Fords and Chevys. I've got the 6-cylinder firing order and the 4-cylinder firing order there if you didn't know. Alright, so it's all, a lot of information is on this page that you're currently viewing this video on, so you can get a bit of info out of that. Alright, that covers it. I hope you learned something.